Well, hey guys, as I mentioned, I'm here with Sam Gwatkin, and we are going to have a great episode because, as I mentioned in the intro, Sam and I we go back a while, and actually, he grew up in the same town I live in, and graduated from the high school in town, and he's actually recording this from his dorm room at Youngstown State University. This guy has a lot going on, so I'm glad you were able to take some time, Sam, to talk with us and share your background. So thanks for being on the podcast.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, a lot of great people that I know have been on this podcast, and I've been waiting for the opportunity to get on myself.
Yeah, and so let's talk about Sam for a few minutes before we talk about motorsports. So, Sam, I said you have a lot going on. You're 22 years old. You're a full-time IT student at YSU. You're a part-time Marine. So thank you for your service to the country.
Never a problem.
You're doing welding in the Marine.
Correct.
You've done some Champ Car, Lemons, SCCA time trials or time attacks. You've done Grid Life. You were at our shop this week, late, helping us with getting the car ready for pit race. So how do you find time to do this all?
Managing a very good schedule and outlook, and making sure I have my weekends planned. Especially when it comes to my job. I work as an RA as well in the dorm, so I have to plan my weekends out for like the whole semester when I'll be like in the dorms and working and watching over the residents. So I just maintain a pretty good calendar, and I let people know if I have something going on and I can't do anything else.
Wow. Yeah, wow. That's awesome. I mean, you got a lot of discipline, you got a lot of focus, you got a lot of drive. So it's great to see young people have the whole package.
Right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit more about your motorsports background. How'd you get started in racing?
Right. Well, I actually got started with Bill, with a Facebook post back in 2017. I was kind of just getting in the cars back then, getting my learner's permit and learning how to drive with my dad and his now my Volkswagen Rabbit, which was also manual. And I was big into YouTube at the time too, like a lot of kids my age were, watching different kind of content. With my background in IT, I also watched a lot of gaming. So as soon as I started getting into cars, I tried to look at what car content was out there. And a big name now is obviously Hoonigan. And I started watching them when they had like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. From them and their activities and their content there, it got me really interested into cars and racing, and learning about Ken Block and what it was he was doing with Hoonigan, and their movie production stuff. It all kind of played into it. And my mom was friends with you on Facebook through whatever connections were in Twinsburg, and you offered like, hey, if anyone wants to come out to the racetrack and just help crew or hang out, come on down. And I jumped on the opportunity. Drove all the way down to pit race in Beaver, PA, a good 2-hour drive, and showed up and was like driving through the hills of PA, and I'm like, where am I going? Like, is this the right address? And for those who've been to pit, you kind of drive up in this backwooded area, and then you're like, what, is there a racetrack back here? There's no way. Driving up the huge hill, and then seeing the huge water tower and the karting track and everything like that. And I walked up, and you were super friendly, and I was nervous, and I think I caught a little bit of the end of the race, and then you guys brought the car back in and started doing work for day 2 because it was Saturday. Gave me an impact gun, and it started changing tires and helped do an oil change and everything like that. And that's it kind of started from there. You guys had an E30 that weekend, and ended up selling that car and moving on to another car, a Ford Focus from Pro Wheel Challenge. So we had some work at your shop, swapping in a stock motor. Learning suspension, learning how to do brakes, just learning about cars and racing in general. Just grew my interest because I had the opportunity to do so, and that passion just grew from there. I did my first track day with Auto Interests over at Nelson Ledges, which is kind of my home track as well, in addition to pit. They were super friendly there. Went through like a novice 1-day class. Had an instructor in the car, learning how to hit the apex and braking zones, and learning about heel towing, and everything that kind of goes into it. Then went from there. We did one race with the Focus. And there I met a buddy of mine, Nick Katowisk, and started working with him and doing some test days, and then eventually got my first wheel-to-wheel race in Nelson Lenges. So that's kind of my start, and I think that puts me at like 2018, 2019, and then I've been racing ever since.
Yeah, as you were telling the story of you heading up the pit race, I now I remember all of that. And yeah, you just jumped right in, no hesitation, no timidness, just jumped right in. You were a huge help. And yeah, that was great. I missed that E30. And here's a little bit of, I was talking to someone about this recently who's getting into this, into endurance racing. Keep the car you have for a few years. You spend all this time and money getting the car ready, getting it on track, and if you sell it at the end of the season and you buy something different the next year, you're starting the whole process over again. So no love lost on the Focus. That's but
that was the car.
Yeah, but the BMW, that was, I was actually shared that race weekend video. There's a couple snippets I have in video. I just shared it with somebody to show them what the track looks like from the driver's perspective.
Gotcha. Yeah.
That's cool. So, so you just jumped right into it, went wheel-to-wheel racing at Nelson. Was that a Champ car or Lemons?
Yeah, so that was the first 24 that was back at Nelson Lenges. Or no, sorry, that was the second one.
The second, because you crewed for us. You crewed for us on the first one, didn't you?
Right. Yeah, that was the first one. Yeah. We were racing the Mini Cooper.
Right.
And that was an interesting race as well. Crazy staying up all throughout the night, and me and Brian doing the fuel for the car the entire time. Fuel the car, swap the driver in, and then go sit back and take a nap right in the pits. Michael Fassbender was at that race too. I walked right by him along with Paul Hirsch, and Paul was like, that was Michael Fassbender, right? And I'm like, what? It was like, it had to be like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and like pitch black, and I didn't even recognize him. Like I think I looked at him, I'm like, oh, that's just a regular guy. And then like when Paul mentioned it, I was like, it clicked in my brain, like, that's Michael Fassbender at a race.
Yeah, that weekend was crazy. That 24 race. I mean, from spending all day Friday swapping out suspension and axles, not getting a single lap. Well, maybe we got a couple laps, but I got no laps on Friday practice.
And welding in an extra door bar out of a random piece of like steel that was at the track already.
Yeah. Well, we went to a salvage yard to go get that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So when Champ Car said, "Yeah, we like the cage, but it just needs another piece of metal," we said, "Guys, listen, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere here. Where are we going to find roll bar 2, right?" And Fred Wolf, who manages the track, called some salvage yard, and he's like, "They have pipe you can dig through." And we did. We drove up there, and the pipe, oh my gosh, it felt like it weighed 50 pounds for this 4-foot section.
Right.
And some used pipe and luckily enough, there was a young man who had a good-sized generator and a portable welder, and he needed hours to get his welding certificate.
Yes, I do remember that as well.
We tried to give him money and beer, and he just wanted hours.
Right.
Yeah, that was a late night. But, yeah, it's funny. That I kind of forgot about that 24-hour race.
Yeah, and it's actually funny because Nick, who I race with now, he was paddocked right next to us, and always tells the story now. He's like, "Yep, you guys had the generator right next to my trailer, and I did not sleep the night before the race."
Yeah,
because you guys were welding, and the generator was kicking on and off from the from the welder kind of tripping in every once in a while. So yeah, that's we also laugh at that.
Oh yeah. It was a late night, and it was a long weekend, and think about the differences between that event, and we basically had you and Brian, the famous race chef, as crew. Now we're going to pit race in a week and a half, or a week. We're going to be up there in 1 week from the recording of this. And we basically have 4 dedicated if you include Brian, we have 5 dedicated crewmen.
Right?
Yeah, we as drivers are really going to be relaxing, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. I'll probably hop in there and crew. I usually like to
Yeah.
help out, but yeah.
No, that's great. So, let's talk about some champ car racing and some of the endurance racing you've done. Talk about some of the races, some of the experiences you've had behind the wheel. Good times, bad times.
Right. Yeah, I was going through it over the summer. I was like, man, I'm building resumes for college. Maybe I should do one for racing in
Yeah.
case I want to race for another team. Like, what's your experience? And I was going through it, and it's like I've done Nelson Ledges, pit race. I've been to Mid Ohio. I've been out to Thompson for Champ Car and Lemons. Same thing with Pitt, Lemons and Champ Car. I've been out to New Hampshire Motor Speedway for Hoopty Fest with Lemons. Also drove out New Jersey Motorsports Park Thunder for a test day as well. So yeah, it's been a crazy amount of experience over the last like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. So you're doing all this too. I mean, you've got jobs and you've got school and all that. That's great. So what track do you like the most?
I gotta go with Pitt. Pitt, I've had the most time there. And the elevation change, like compared to like every other track I've been to, is pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
After turn one, turn 2, turn 3, then going into Coyote Gulch and coming up and out of that, and then through the S's, and then you're up and over another hill, and that forget what turn that is, but that blind corner right over the hill where
A
it's
little bit
like
of a left-hander.
the right hander
Oh, okay.
coming
All right.
up and over and down to that back long straight. Like you gotta build up some courage to just like,
Mm-hmm.
because you can flat foot it with some cars just right over the top, and it's like anticipating like what another driver's going to do, and if they have the courage to also do the same of going over that corner. And I've passed people on the outside there, especially this year at Pitt, with Lemons. Some people are really timid going over that corner. I've going around someone on the outside there, it's really sketchy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it is. You're right. That is a fun track. I think if somebody asked me my favorite, it'd probably be it too. And it's such a nice facility. They've done so much improvements there over the years. It's a nice, clean, well laid out facility. Lots of great
Right.
paddock space too.
Yeah, there's places you can watch from the hill where turn 1 is. You can see like a majority of track, and then you can also look at the back where they kind of have that more like pit stall, like garage spaces as well. And I think they have like a banquet center on top of that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea behind that. So you can see the track and see driver's lines, and be able to learn when you get there is super important. Yeah, and there's warm showers, and a ton of garage space for people who utilize that. And everything's paved as well, so it's not like you're in the grass at all.
Yeah, and plus that's where we learned about Domination Wednesday. It was at Pitt. So
Yes,
yeah, those
good
are
old
nice.
Domination Wednesday from a member of a Champ Car racer who was indulging himself. And speaking of his great Domination Wednesday story.
Yes. Yeah. So let's talk about your 2022 season. What have you done so far this season? Where have you raced? Later in the show, we'll talk a little bit more about your involvement with our team at Pit Race. But what have you done so far this year?
Right. This year's been kind of slow. Just the way it's gone. Kind of also the economy and racing in general. I think a lot of people kind of taken a break this year and take some races off. So I've kind of done the same as well. Started the year off with Pit Lemons, racing there with Nick. We race an orange E30 318, so it's an M10 4-cylinder. Got like an upgraded head on it, a fancy shifter. I forget where from, but it's really short. Good wheels and tires, and some just basic suspension upgrades on it. That was interesting. We were supposed to have 4 drivers. But unfortunately, one of the drivers just got sick like the night before, and couldn't come. So we did it with 3 drivers, which was really interesting. Splitting the driving time and swapping people out, and it was the 3 drivers and Brian. So like only 4 people like total, including the drivers in the car for pit stops, which makes it interesting and fast paced and trying to make sure everyone has the responsibility in a role. It was me, myself, Nick, and then a rookie driver who was friends of Nick who had done a wheel to wheel race before, but first time at pit. I ended up doing 2 stints on Saturday. I got a little sick on my first stint, so I had to end it a little bit early and go find some Dramamine. But after that, I got back in the car and finished out the race on Saturday. I think I went from like 25th, 26th to 13th on that last stint, so I was really happy with that, and moved from 7th to 2nd in class, and
Nice.
finished off the day and took the checkered. So I was really happy with that. I think that was like I think my best performance in a stint, I'd say. And then Sunday kind of went we gave the rookie driver some more time, so which was understandable. So he was a couple seconds behind us in terms of lap times, which kind of brought us back. We also lost a shock bolt. So he was driving the car. He's like, "Hey, the car kind of feels weird. It's not handling as it should. I'm kind of hearing a sound, so I think I'm gonna come in." We're like, "All right, come in. Just go right to the paddock, and we'll jack it up and check it out." And luckily we went to the right side that the bolt was missing, but we jacked up the car and the wheel stayed on the ground, and we were like, "That what?"
Huh.
And then we took it, and then like kind of once it was off the ground, we kind of bounced, and they're like, "This doesn't feel right." And then we looked underneath the car, and it's missing the shock bolt, like gone, like not like sheared, not like stuck in the knuckle, just gone and just hanging there. So luckily we have our little Tupperware of like random bolts from all shapes and sizes. Went ahead and grabbed that and dug through it, got it back together, but it cost us like half an hour of driving time on Sunday. So we dropped back, but I think we ended up finishing like 15th and like second or third in class for the day. So good showing for the car, but we wanted some more success out of it. Also did Grid Life for the first time this year, and also a new track as well, which was Audubon Country Club out in Joliet, Illinois, which is just outside Chicago. There I drove my personal car, a 95 Mustang Cobra that I picked up a couple years ago out on the east side of Cleveland. I've got BC Racing coilovers on that, wheels and tires, some Enki RPF 1s and some Vulcan 615Ks. Also just replaced a bunch of suspension, brakes, and kind of gone through the basics with it. Some polyurethane bushings here and there, but mostly stock. I'd say besides the coilovers, just mainly stock. I think the front control arms are rubber bushings, and I kept the rear upper control arm stock as well, because I think that's the suggestion I got from the community in terms of moving to a pan hard bar. I think is what the car needs next. But yeah, first time at Grid Life, super fun. Everyone was super friendly. Between tech, the information center, everyone just seemed like everyone was happy to be there, happy to help out. Just like I was just kind of like the first race with you. I was like, this is all new to me. Don't really know anyone here. Like, figuring out the staff, and everyone was super helpful. And I showed up to like the novice meeting because I'm like, all right, first time driving with Good Life. They probably like want to know my experience or like at least have questions, or I might get called out if I don't go to this. And I didn't really get like an email or anything, so I was like, oh, I'll just go and ask questions. It's first time at the track. It's always important to like learn from people who are teaching and absorb what experience I could. And I show up to the meeting and they're like, "What's your name? Why are you here?" I was like, "Oh, it's my name's Sam. It's my first time here." And he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing time attack and street TT." And they're like, "Okay, we'll talk to you after the meeting. Just stand around, listen, and we'll talk to you after." And I ended up talking. I completely forget the guy's name, but he was super friendly as well, and the way he was interacting with some of the newer drivers out there was awesome. But I told him my experience. I'm like, hey, I've done a ton of wheel at a bunch of other tracks, but it's my first time here. First time with Grid Life, so just want to make sure I was all good. And he's like, no, you know what you're doing. Like, just go have fun, be safe, learn the track, work up to it, and you'll be good. So it was a fun weekend. I had some issues, which I kind of want to save for my my late to grid moment later.
All right.
But I was kind of outclassed with being a 95 Cobra. There was a lot of like GT 500s, GT 350s, some like C7 CO7 cars, those Corvettes. But yeah, lot more horsepower, a lot more handling, better technology. So I may not go back for a time attack event, but I may go back for just maybe a track day, and some of the tracks I travel to, I kind of want to stop by as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I've heard
but-
lots of great things about grid life, the community, the camaraderie, the fun, the concerts.
Right. Yeah. I follow him on social media. There's a YouTube channel called Gears and Gasoline. Some younger guys who do a ton of time attack racing in there, and it's good. They do some really good cinematography as well in terms of like the content they produce. And I enjoy watching them, and they do a ton of grid life content. But yeah, I'm looking to get another event with them, maybe next year, but we'll see. I think the my third race of the year, it was just last month. I was at Thompson Motor Speedway in Connecticut. It was Champ Car with that same E30. Lap times were looking good in practice. It was 3 drivers, but it was a 14-hour race, so we were okay with that. Yeah. Test day went well. We were trying out some new tires, new wheels that were a little wider wheels in terms of the rim, but the actual tire size was the same, and that actually helped out. I think we took down like a second off of our best time from last year. And then I got in for the first stint. Lap times went down as well, even in the race as well, so we were happy with that. Got out of the car, second driver got in. Things went well with them as well. Third stint, owner of the car, Nick, got in, and unfortunately developed some rod knock. So he's like, I'm down on the radio. He's like, I'm down on power. I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna come in. And we're like, okay. He comes in, he revs the engine a little bit, and then you just hear knock, 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 and we're like, oh, we're done. So that we unfortunately ended after the third stint with that. He's got another. That was the M10, so that's done unfortunately. But he just finished swapping an M44 motor, which is like the E36 4-cylinder into it, and he's doing the Grand. It's like the Thompson Grand Prix time trial thing. I forget exactly what it is, but he's going to be doing that this weekend with the car. But again, it was good Champ Car race. People were friendly. It was interesting to see. There's a pretty bad crash as well on another E30. I think I showed you some of the photos, and I posted it on my Instagram. They went in Thompson. They were going down the front straight, and I think they went 4 wide, or I think a car kind of passed on the grass, and they just kind of got caught up in each other and spun and hit a concrete barrier really hard and totaled the car. But yeah, it happened like right in front of us too. Like we heard the crash and looked up, and the cars were just everywhere. But driver was safe. No, didn't have to go to the hospital. I don't think he even had a serious concussion, but car was definitely totaled after that. But that's, it happens with racing, and I think it was a good reminder for me, that you're out there racing, and bad things can happen if things don't go your way, or if you don't have the right luck, or if you're not being a little bit more cautious at times. So, I think that was probably like the worst wreck I've seen in the couple years of racing that I've had. Luckily, I haven't had anything super serious, but I think it's a good reminder. Just be a little bit more cautious, especially at the level we're racing at.
Yeah, if you think about it, I mean, we're all, at certain points of the track, depending upon what you're driving. I mean, you're doing 120, 140, 160 miles an hour. You get a couple of cars, you get tangled. You don't know where a wheel's going to end up and what that'll do. There was a SCCA race at Mid-Ohio a couple weeks back, and the Civic went through turn 1 under the bridge. The rear end started hopping, and it rolled.
Yeah.
Didn't even stick a wheel off, I don't think.
Right.
And where I'm going with this is it's so important to make sure that, you're going to have a proper cage. That's why we have tech. That's why we there's rules for all this kind of stuff. The helmet. Make sure something as simple as
Hans device.
Hans device. Yeah, just making sure everything is just as it should be, because God forbid you need it.
Right. Yeah. Last year with that E30 at the last pit champ car race, we had a oil pressure center at the back kind of work its way loose from the head, and like it started shooting oil everywhere while the race was going on, and it hit the exhaust and caught fire, and luckily Nick, the owner of the car, was in, and pulled the fire extinguisher, got that worked, and then put it out and everything. But yeah, for sure, it's there for a reason.
Yeah. So let's talk about motorsports and what keeps you interested. So, as we mentioned, you're 22 years old.
Right.
You have a million things going on. There's a million other things you could be doing and spending your time with. Why motorsports? What's the attraction?
It's something about an engine. I think that's what it is. And it's also the people. You at my first, meeting you, going to the first race with you, everyone's super friendly. Everyone's super involved. Everyone's super passionate, and it's something you also want to get into. And it's it helps other people's passions feed your passions. Other people's positive attitudes and looks on things also feed into you being positive, you enjoying things. And most race weekends have had fun. Even if it doesn't go my way, learning something, still hanging out with people, meeting new people, new opportunities. It's been a lot of fun. The generosity, at the first race, Marlon had an extra fire suit, and a helmet and gloves and shoes, and was like, hey, go ahead, you can borrow this for the race, so you can help us pit crew. And I was just so surprised that someone would give away let me borrow expensive equipment for a race, and I was like this is awesome. Same thing with my first track day in my car, and going to Auto Interests, and the way they ran their novice group was super friendly, and the way that they were teaching me was again super friendly and super helpful, and they wanted me to learn, they wanted me to get faster. People like Brian Hirth, who are out there, the chef, who's he hasn't I think he's only driven a car once in the last 5 years, but he goes to every race that he can, and he's there and cooks and makes people happy through food and entertainment, and he's there just to have fun, and it's guys and people like that are just super awesome, want to bring me back. I can keep naming people off like Taylor Allen, who was previously at Hawk. Helped me out with a set of brake pads, because that's just what Hawk does. Going to different events and sponsoring, just that generosity. That first Nelson 24 that I did with you, helping out Junk Player Special. I think that they named the car Stella. I think that was the name of the car that they had, and working with them and them helping us out when we were doing fuel stops and helping hand over fuel jugs, and then me kind of returning it and helping them change brake pads and rotors in the middle of a 24-hour race. Even at going the grid life, first time an event, first time with the organization. Guy who's racing, they have a wheel-to-wheel series called GLTC, and I needed a drill bit to help work, to make a battery tie down at the track, and I had the drill and I had all the material, I just didn't have a drill bit. And he let me borrow his super fancy drill bit, and I was and it cut through the aluminum like butter, and I was like, thank you so much. I wouldn't have been able to race that weekend without that, because I needed that piece, or I would have had to left the track and go to Home Depot and lose time on track. I think even what was his name? Someone from the professional scene in NASCAR, who does more of the road racing stuff. I forget his name, but he was out there with Champ Car, and we needed a piece to help change the control arm. There was a bolt stuck or something, and we went over and we're like, hey, sorry to bother you guys, but do you have a Dremel or anything, something with something we can use to cut it out. And they're like, one of the crew guys was like, hold on. And then like went into their fancy trailer and just they didn't even ask questions, grabbed a Dremel and a fancy carbide bit to like get out whatever we needed to get out. He's like, just bring it back. And it's like, a couple $100 worth of tool. And like, he's just like, here you go, bring it back. And it's like all of that friendliness and openness to help people and the want to help people just keeps bringing me back, because they're good. Everyone's good people. Like my buddy like Nick has always told me, he's like, I've never had something stolen at a racetrack ever, and he's been racing for so many years, and like that just speaks to the kind of people that are in the motorsports community.
That's spot on. I mean, that's a great reason to stay involved, to be involved. You yourself, you emulate a lot of those characteristics that you mentioned. Giving of your time, helpful. You're always smiling. You exude, positivity. So, it's great to have you in the sport. And as a matter of fact, let's talk about your long-term racing plans. Then, where do you want to go? Where do you, is this always going to be, you in the amateur ranks? Do you want to get up in the semi-pro? Do you want to get up in the pro? Do you want to weld with a race team? You're studying IT. Where's this all going?
Right. And it's funny you ask that, because it's kind of the questions I'm asking myself now. I'm senior year of college. I've got so many different pathways and opportunities in front of me. And I'm taking some time to sit down and figure that out. I think I can maybe speak more like the possibilities now that I could go through. I definitely think like welding, fabricating could be an option. Maybe opening my own shop in a couple of years after doing some IT stuff. I've actually seen a lot of that through social media and YouTube, where guys come from IT and then they're like, I like working with my hands, and I do stuff on the side, and they kind of make that switch over in that career. So I've always thought about that being an option.
That's like Rob Dahm, right?
Yeah, that's exactly like Rob Dahm.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that's who I look at. I'm like, that will probably be me one day. So yeah, I think in terms of going from amateur to pro, I think if everything lines up and I get lucky, like, sure, like that would be awesome. If there's an opportunity out there that happens like that, I think I'd probably hop on that. But I think even with all of those pathways, I want to stay involved in some respect, whether it's the driver, builder, fabricator, or even being like a crew chief or like a team manager. In that respect, I think that's what I think in some respect, whatever path I go down. Also with the military and graduating, going military officer is an option as well. And so I think whatever path opens in front of me, I think racing will always be a part of that. And I think it just like life, we kind of don't know what's going to happen 5 years from now, 4 years from now, 2 years from now. And I think I'm just going to try and keep my my opportunities open to anything, whether it's both career wise and in racing. So my long term plan is to stay involved with racing however I can.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, you can always open up your own radar. We can help you with that.
Right, yeah. We'll see where my success takes me.
Yeah. But, there's also, you look at the motorsports business that we've built here in Wycliffe, it continues to take off. And that's something where, a couple of years from now, you never know. You could say, hey, Sam, we need some IT help on the franchise side, but we've got a motorsports need and fabrication need in the motorsports side of things in Wycliffe. So, matter of fact, with the 944 that's supposed to get towed in tonight, I'm going to guess he's probably going to bring it tomorrow, but he's got a laundry list of things that he wants. It's already a IT SCCA race car. It's been sitting for way too long. He's got a laundry list of stuff he wants. He wants to get it back on track. And, it's I'm going to give a plug for Track First. It's item, at the bottom of when we sit down with people on the motorsports side, we always interview them and, what are the goals? What's the budget? What do you want to do? Do you already have a source to get stuff? That sort of thing. And we're going to say, listen, we're going to go down meet Tim and Sally with you, and you need a new seat. We already know he needs a new seat. You need a couple of these other things. Anyways, I digress. We have a home for you. Good person like you.
Right. Yeah.
definitely
Hey,
bring into the fold.
yeah. That'd be an interesting opportunity. Especially with IT and the way things are going with like, I mean, everyone talks about big data and like Google and Facebook and all kind of collecting information, and that's positive or negative, and I'm not going to really touch on that, but you look at but motorsports, right? I mean, you see those F1 teams. There's a bunch of team technicians and data analysts and everything that's sitting on the side that's also looking at that data, and all that goes in some respects. When I say IT, my focus is software development and being able to code some of those systems to react positively in environments, especially with like the F1 cars, and how that technology kind of transfers over. Especially like we're installing the Flagtronics system in the race car this like just a couple days ago, and that requires a certain amount of software. It's an IT field as well, and setting up those sensors on the track, and learning how those work, and networking and setting up the GPS for all of that. There's definitely room in motorsports for IT as well, and I think my perfect world would be to try and combine both of those.
Yeah. Have you connected up with Andrew Rains from Apex?
I don't think I have.
He was a previous guest. Probably makes sense for the few of you to talk. And I'm a big fan of what I call career interviews. It's not a job interview, but it's almost like networking. But you're very specific on, all right, what's your company do? You hire software people. What are you looking for? What kind of experience should I get if I want to do something like this? So I'll make a note to get the two of you introduced.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something I've been doing with this like this past year with school and this senior year of school of going to different career fairs, going to like a STEM expo that we have here at Youngstown, and talking to different companies and asking those right questions like, hey, I may not be perfect for what you're looking for right now, but what can I do to get to that point to be a good applicant or be a good hire, and like learning about companies and what they do is also super important going to interview, because you want to work for a company that is doing work that you would be passionate about or is in your interest field. So for sure that I'm looking forward to reaching out to him.
Yeah, and you should listen to his episode, because he tells a story of, he was involved in the Formula SAE team, realized there was a need for data, developed a system to capture that data. I don't know if he started the company or started to work for the company, and there's been a spin-off and things like that. But now he and another buddy opened up a race shop down at Barber.
Okay.
So you talked earlier about that progression from software to shop. That's somebody that did that too. So
right.
There's an interesting theme that keeps happening in this podcast, and it's networking. It's just
right.
And it's so important in our industry that somebody's probably done what someone's thinking of or been down that path. All you gotta do is talk to someone, understand what that journey looks like, and learn.
Right.
All right, so let's talk a little bit more about pit race next week. So we're lucky enough to get you to get on the team with us, and you came and you helped and you wrenched a bit last week. You helped make a bracket to help us get another kill switch in the car and remount the fire system. So this is your first time racing a front-wheel drive car, though, wheel-to-wheel, right?
Correct. Yeah. Obviously, Mustang is rear-wheel drive, and so is a BMW E30. I do daily drive a Volkswagen Rabbit, which is also a Golf, but they named it that way for a couple years. Manual as well, of course, But I do some spirited driving with that vehicle. But I'll be interested to see how a front-wheel drive car races wheel-to-wheel. And I haven't driven on track with a front-wheel drive car as well. So I'm interested to see some of the characteristics of it. Handling profile, how I can push the car, how I should leave it be, everything like that. It's going to be interesting going from been racing that E30 with Nick for like 3 years now, so it'll be like my second real, or it'll be my third real race car that I've hopped in and raced. So it'll be an interesting opportunity.
Yeah, we've had, it's coming up on its year anniversary. Well, just over a year we've had the car, and I prefer a rear-wheel drive car. But I'll tell you, first off, this Dodge Neon's it's a blast to drive. You're going to get behind the wheel, and you're just going to get an instant smile after a couple laps. It happens every time we take it out on track. But yeah, it is a different beast, and you realize you're going to a turn, and you got a rear wheel that's lifting up, and at Mid-Ohio we had a front wheel lifting up a bit as well because we tried a different sway bar. So we swapped, as you remember the other night, we swapped that back out, and went back to the stock sway bar. So you're a few laps, you'll get a feel for it. But yeah, you can't necessarily. You can steer a little bit with the throttle pedal in the case of like pulling yourself out
Okay.
of a turn or potential spin. But
Right.
yeah.
So it's more about hitting the gas when you're trying to.
The
turn
Neon,
in
you're
front.
always on the gas.
Oh, yeah. It's probably a little underpowered, but it's a learning car, especially with the two other drivers that we're going to have with us this weekend. I think it's Andy's second wheel-to-wheel race, and it's Matt's first.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be an interesting experience working with those guys, learning the track, learning wheel-to-wheel, talking about what they're thinking about on track, and like how they're looking at corners and how to pass other vehicles. It's gonna be interesting to help them build up their confidence at pit race, because I think Matt's been there once with Track 9 America with SCCA, and I think Andy hasn't had any experience over at pit. So just learning the track in general as well, and they say when you're learning something, the best way to kind of reinforce the memory is to interact with it 3 different ways, right? Whether it's, I think, like a lot of people, like first call ones are like, writing notes about it, right? Or like receiving it from a teacher. That's like one way. And then you write notes about it and learn another way. And then the next factor of it is then teaching it. So it's going to be interesting trying to talking about the track and what I'm thinking when I'm on track, when I'm looking at a corner or a situation, and learning how to convey that appropriately and effectively to other people on the track.
Yeah.
Or to our other drivers.
Well, the neat thing is we're going to have the Garmin, and as long as we are diligent about it, we'll have our different profiles in there. Now, we won't be able to look at real-time data, but at the end of the first day, so we have a Friday test day, if we're all in the car, we can look at and say, okay, well, yeah, you're 2 seconds faster, but look at we're faster in different spots on the track. So what are you doing here, and what am I doing there? And
right.
Then just continually learning from one another. And then you have the communication set up in your helmet, right?
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
I have.
Perfect.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll be able to get that real-time feedback, too, about what's the car doing or other things to help the next driver when he pops in.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of work with Ames Solo 2 system, and pulling data from that and looking at it analytically and all their graphs, comparing myself to Nick, or the owner of the E30, and working with him and seeing like different zones where going into turn 2 he was braking a lot later than I was, and that's where he was gaining time on me. But although I was a little bit slower than he was, I was way faster in the S's than he was, and learning how we can combine our different experiences on track to put together that best lap between different drivers was super interesting. An interesting capability that the AIM stuff had. So I'm interested to see how the Garmin performs. Yeah,
for sure. Well, it's going to be a great event. As we talked about earlier, we've got a good crew coming to help us. We got the famous race chef, who's going to be our chief hospitality officer.
The chef.
We should get him an apron like the chef from South Park.
Yes, I think he has one. He's upgrading his fit, as the kids call it nowadays. But yeah, he's got a full chef's hat that he wears every weekend, and I think he's got an apron. But maybe we'll have to, maybe if he doesn't listen to this in time, we can surprise him with a new apron. Maybe something more sport. Maybe something more sports like. Maybe Team Salins has like a grill and apron kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can see if they have something like that.
Yeah. Well, Sam, it's been great having you on. I got a couple more questions before we wrap up. So how do people kind of keep up with you, keep tabs on you? Instagram, Facebook, what do you got going on there?
Right. So I have Gwatkin Racing. Gwatkin's going to be spelled Gwatkin Racing. It's one word, no spaces. On there on Instagram and Facebook. I also have a personal Instagram, and Facebook, although those are more private. You can feel free to reach out to those ones as well, and just Samuel Gwatkin on both profiles as well. You'll be able to easily find me.
Cool, and we'll put links in the show notes to those links, those Instagram links, that is. And then I guess lastly, have you ever been late to grid?
Right. So yes. This will expand on my experience, my first time with Grid Life. And the Autobahn Country Club event was, I think, either June or July over this past summer. And I was doing some work on it over the weekend, over the past year, over the winter. Replacing some suspension components like I've been talking about, but I also had a rear main seal issue. First time doing that on the car. Did it in the garage in the cold in the middle of December, and fortunately didn't go well. I went to go fix it. Got it all fixed, got buttoned up, and then started the car, and it was running fine. I had it up in the air, making sure everything was good. I'd also replaced the clutch at that time too, so I was making sure the wheels were turning. And after a while, it started to puke up a little bit. A little bit of oil started to come back out again. So I was like, oh man. And I think at that point I was like 2 weeks out from the event. And again, I was living in Cincinnati, and the car is in Cleveland at my dad's place. So I'm like, I don't have time to do this. I have 2 weeks before this event. I got to figure this out. So I was like, you know who can work on this? Bill. Because Bill, you had just started pushing the motorsports program that Rad Air has started to do as well. So I was like, this is this perfect opportunity. I'll reach out. I don't have the time to work on it, but I got to get to this race. So called you, worked with your shop manager to get it in there, get the parts in, get it all done, and luckily that got done. Race week, right? Worked longer hours Monday to Thursday so I could leave on Friday early. Left at about 2 p.m. from Cincinnati, drove to Cleveland. Got to Cleveland 5 p.m. Some more work I had to do on the car. I had to install a front tow strap on the vehicle because Grid Life requires that for front and rear, as well as just some other little bits here and there that I wanted to check up before driving the car out, because I don't have a truck and a trailer. The college kid can't really afford one right now, but in the future. So I drove out with my dad. We finished up at about 10 p.m. Left from Cleveland, loaded up his Volkswagen Passat, and I drove in my Volkswagen Mustang. Through the night, we had to stop. We were tired, so we had to stop at 1 a.m. in the morning, to get some sleep. Slept from like 1 to 3, and drove somewhere in Indiana, and then drove from there from 2 o'clock to get to the track at like 6 a.m. And we got there like 45 minutes before gates opened up. Got there, went through tech, and they're like, this battery tie down isn't good enough. And I was like, kind of expecting that, and so I had to fabricate it. I bought some all thread and some aluminum stock, and made it at the track, and borrowed that that drill bit from the friend next to me, and got it all situated. So I was late to grid because I missed the first session. Although it was I think the track was still a little bit wet from the night before, so I wasn't super worried about it because it wouldn't have been great lap times. But yeah, I was late to grid because I'm a man doing a million things at once, and not enough time in a day.
Yeah, with that background, that's like our typical race team, doing stuff the night before, the morning of, then loading up and trying to get there. I'm glad you were able to get on track and get that all sorted and have a great event at Autobahn. Did you run the north, the south, the full?
The south.
Okay.
I believe it was the south course.
Yeah, and they use Flagtronics there, right?
I believe so.
But they have. You don't necessarily need the in-car. They have.
No,
they have displays.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Flagtronics. I think is the only one that requires it is Champ Car as of now. But yeah.
Cool. Well, again, Sam, it was great having you on. Great episode. I know the listeners are going to learn. Well, A, they learned a lot about you. B, they understand the progression somebody can make from seeing a Facebook post and being, encouraged by their mom and say, "Hey, go and do this," and then look at you just a few years later.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's always important to get it out to the youth. More sports in general and getting people involved, and sometimes like just getting the opportunity out there and letting people know, and you can get an extra set of hands or an extra couple set of hands for whatever you got going on. Even if it's you don't have to be a professional race team that's backed by a shop or anything. Even if just locally reaching out to different people, reaching out to different high school programs. I know there's a few people out there that like work with different shop teachers and different technical schools that the opportunity to work on a race car and crew or be exposed to it. I think if anything, I want some listeners out there to take away is that offer whatever opportunities they can to young guys like me, just to help out. Doesn't have to be driving, but just getting the opportunity to see the car, maybe put some hands on it and just learn. I think is super important for motorsports in general and the longevity of it.
Awesome advice. Again, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity, Bill. Appreciate it.